I find myself in a state of disillusionment and misanthropy towards the human species. And I didn't want to feel this way. I want to believe that people are mostly good people and that, I live in a world where, people are not so hateful and intolerant and mean and cruel and everything else. But all the time I find myself stumbling into content that reminds me that one of the reasons why I got this way is that I started to realize that wolves don't sit around basically, and wonder how to make their fellow wolf miserable through intimidation, through mocking, through basically just engaging in social exclusion and keeping people out of their social circles just for loving the wrong thing and rejecting them as people just because they were into the wrong fandom or whatnot, and demonizing them and wanting to lock them up and throw them behind bars for loving something other than maybe potentially like literally touching children. I mean, then yeah, let lock the pedophiles up. Like, I'm with you there, man. But I have seen so much of this kind of crap, and people that like demonize on people just for being like into like anime and Japanese animation in the West, and it like there was a video that went up, and it's only my algorithmic awareness that makes me like act the way that I did, and it was from Nasu. Like, as I don't know if that's actually how you pronounce this channel's name, but he was coming up here and he was basically saying, and by the way, I'm aware my camera sucks if you're new here, but he was coming up here and his video was titled, anime dubs aren't cringe, anime is. And, all I could think as I started reading the video title was, no, hating on people for being into anime is cringe. Though I'm really actually rather sick of it. I mean, I did agree with a girl who came up here relatively recently and started talking about like, why do we have to be rude to people for having positive feelings in regards towards something? Like, why can't we just let people like what they like, video wise? And I was like, yeah, I agree with you obviously towards her. Like, I find myself in complete agreement. I think it's actually rather scummy to kind of sit up here and judge people just for belonging to the wrong fandom. And what gets me in a big way is that there are a lot of aspects of the anime fandom that have historically kind of led me to cringe too. But it's not because like anime is the problem, it's because like a lot of the fans can be pretty toxic. Now, I'm somebody that made the dumbass mistake, like, and I was called out on it on Twitter, where I belonged to like the Anime Bites website before, which is now currently down. And you know I went into their IRC channel and tried to interact with them and everything, and I got a bunch of nuke Portland, nuke the cities, style shit from people in that IRC channel. And it was like, if you want to talk toxic anime fans, then you can talk about the people that prominate Anime Bytes primary channel on their IRC server, are a glorious example of a crew of people that are anime fans that are just absolutely fucking toxic as shit. Like, I don't, I feel a little bit, bad about having to come up here and say that sort of thing about them. But I mean, come on, man. I mean, these people are calling for like the genocide of like a good chunk of the human race just because the human race have these people in these locations have a way of voting in a way that they don't like. You know, they're Democrats, and so kill them. They're unpeople to them, and it's sickening to watch this kind of thing go on in these spaces and everything. And I'm not saying otherwise, but I don't think anime is the problem there. I think the United States is infamous urban rural divide is at the core of a lot of it. And you've got a lot of people that are essentially political, whether or not anime existed. I mean, if you took these weebs in these places, animes away, they're still gonna fucking hate the urban populations for not voting the way that they think is good and proper anyways. they're still gonna be just as cringe with or without enemy, and it's like, there's this tendency within people to look for an external cause to pin things on, but it's very obvious to me that if you, took these people on Enemy Bytes, the IRC server, their enemy away from them and, basically force them to cope with the reality, they're still going to be bashing on urban America just as much as they are now. It's not taking those things away from them is not going to make them love the urban population any more than they already do. You know what I'm saying and driving at. But, Nasu made this video, and all I could think is, I would love to go into his section and be like, actually, no, it's you that's cringe because here you are trying to make it out like, people who watch anime are cringe and that they're the problem and that they're scummy and that they're cringy worthy and all this stuff and that they should be ashamed and that they're too old for it and everything. And you're trying to do all that with it. And, to me, you're the one that deserves to be a social misfit, not the anime fans for liking what they like, because, you're being discourteous, rude, and cruel to people for just loving something and being of the wrong fandom. And, to me, I wouldn't hang out with that guy, the one that wants to make you feel bad and like shit for, liking anime and for nothing more. Yeah, I wouldn't hang out with him, you know? I don't have time for people like that. And I'd advise the rest of you to avoid people like that too. But what can I do? I can't force you to fucking hate them, but I think you should.